Hi, again, thank you everyone for being with us this evening. My name is Francesca Menes and I'm with the Black Collective, one of the core organizations that is putting on this series for you all. I, again, with the Black Collective, an organization that is focused on shifting Black political and economic power here in South Florida. I'm going to pass it over to our interpretation team, who is going to give instructions because this is going to be in both English and Haitian Creole. So Debbie or Rose?
Good evening. My name is Natasha, and I'm one of your interpreter. I will be interpreting in Haitian Creole with my colleague Debbie Etienne under the company Marb Language Services. It is important to be able to communicate and participate in the language that we are most comfortable in. That's why you have the language interpretation function with the Zoom meeting that you are attending today. In order to use this function, if you are on a computer or a laptop, you will see in the bottom of your screen a little globe. Just click on the globe that says interpretation, and you will have a choice of language. Pick Haitian Creole if you want to participate and listen to the meeting in Haitian Creole. If you do not want to listen to it in Creole, please pick English, because if we have to interpret from Haitian Creole to English speaking need to be able to understand as well. If you are on a phone or a tablet, you will see three little dots in the bottom of your screen. Click on them, it says more, and again, pick your language, and do not forget to click done in order to enter the language channel of your choice. Alors, bonjour, bonsoir tout le monde. Non, moi c'est Natasha, moi là avec collègue moi Debbie Etienne, et nous pourrons offrir un service d'interprétation en créole haïtien. Si nous voulons communiquer ou bien participer en créole haïtien, il y a une fonction dans Zoom qui permet de faire ça. Si vous regardez en bas écran, vous avez un petit globe terrestre, vous cliquez sur lui, et là ça, vous avez choisi la langue que vous voulez. Si vous ne parlez pas créole, ou parlez anglais seulement, il est bon pour nous cliquer sur anglais, pour nous attendre l'interprétation qu'a fait en anglais, si vous avez qui fait intervention en créole. Si nous parlons pour nous gagner bruit de fond, cliquez sur Mute Original Audio. Si c'est son téléphone que nous y, vous avez trois petits points en bas à droite, et quand téléphone nous, cliquez sur lui, il est supposé dire More. Encore une fois, vous avez choisi langue que vous voulez participer ou bien attendre rencontre ça, et puis pas oublier pour cliquer Done pour rentrer dans le channel langue que vous voulez. Si nous pas parler, tant pis qu'il y a un micro nous fermé, et là n'a fait intervention, s'il vous plaît, parlez avec un ton qui modéré. If you are not speaking, please make sure that your microphone is closed. And if you are making a comment or talking, please in a moderate space so that we can capture all the information for you. Thank you and good evening.
Thank you so much, Natasha. And now I'm going to pass it over to Leonie.
Merci, Natasha.
Good evening. Good evening. Bonsoir tout le monde.
Bonsoir tout le monde.
Welcome to part 2 of the Ransom Haiti Stolen Wealth virtual series. My name is Leonie Martin. I was grew up in Port-au-Prince, Pétionville, and I would be remiss if I didn't say that my dad was from Petit Goave, the imperial town of city of Petit Goave, and my mother from the historic city of Arcaille. I live in Miami, where I'm the Director of Development and Communication at Saint-La Haitian Neighborhood Center. And on behalf of my Executive Director, Gypsy Metellus, and the entire Saint-La family, I bring you greetings. Saint-La is a Miami-based, not-for-profit social service organization whose mission is to strengthen, empower, and uplift South Florida's Haitian community. We serve over 16,000 clients a year, providing mission-aligned services grounded in strategies like economic empowerment, family strengthening, and community building. Joining us in this virtual series project are collective Haitian-led organizations who share a commitment to bring Haitian history to the center and unite with all who believe in a vision of a Haiti that is truly free to build on our own future. Thank you to the Black Collective, Haitian American Foundation for Democracy, Sutla Haitian Neighborhood Center, Island TV, Ibo Post, Haitian American Professionals Coalition, HAPSI, and Avancer Ensemble. This is a three-part series of virtual conversations focused on increasing our collective understanding of what happened after Haiti became the first Black independent nation in the Western Hemisphere. We read the New York Times comprehensive account of the ransom, the lost billions, the true cost of freedom, and its present-day impacts. Our goals for this virtual series are to continue to keep this history in the public attention, amplify the learnings, and galvanize for collective action. For today's conversation, we welcome our panelists, Jessica Geneus, Dr. Mame Fatou-Niang, and Dr. Marlena Delt. They will engage in conversation about the impact of the series on what we have called reframing our narratives. The conversation will be moderated by one of our national treasurers, Edwidge Tika, who really needs no introduction. And so we look forward to your questions after the discussion. So, Madame Tika.
Merci Léonie. Bonsoir tout le monde. Good evening. It's wonderful to see so many of you. Old friends, new friends. Thank you for coming. So tonight our discussion is reframing our narrative about Haiti, reframing the narrative about Haiti. With part one, we discussed the making of the series with the journalists, Kathleen Porter and Constant Mehu. We're here last week with moderators Magali Laguerre Wilkinson and Joel Dreyfus, who is like an OG for us and the world of Haitian journalism and in the community. With part two, this part is reframing the narrative, and we're going to focus on ways we can use the series to reframe and debunk disempowering narratives about Haiti. Why we must stop repeating that Haiti is the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, and how we can challenge ourselves and others to redefine who we are with greater nuance and complexity. Next week will be What's Next, Repairing Haiti and the Global Movement for Reparations. So in this great endeavor, we have three wonderful speakers. I will introduce them, and then we'll jump right into the discussion. So first is Dr. Marlena Delt. She is professor of French and African American Studies at Yale University. She's the author of Ballon de Vaste and the Origins of Black Atlantic Humanism, and Tropics of Haiti, Race, and the Literary History of the Haitian Revolution in the Atlantic World. She's also co-editor and co-translator of the volume Haitian Revolutionary Fictions, an anthology. Her next book, An Intellectual History of Haiti, titled Awakening the Ashes, is forthcoming with the University of North Carolina in the fall of 2023. Professor Delt is currently writing a biography of King Henry Christophe for Canop Pantheon, and her essays have appeared in newspapers and magazines such as the New York Times, The Nation, Essence, and Harper's Bazaar, among others. She's a co-creator and co-editor of HNet Common Digital Platform, Haiti, and she curates a website on early Haitian print culture. She also co-edits the Global Black History and Theory section at Public Books and is a series editor at New World Studies at UVA Press. Professor Delt received her BA from Loyola Marymount University and her PhD from the University of Notre Dame. She previously taught at the University of Miami, Claremont Graduate University, and the University of Virginia. Dr. Mame Fatou-Niang is Associate Professor of French and Francophone Studies at Carnegie Mellon University. She's the author of Identité Française and the co-author with Julien Sodot of Universalisme, Her recent research examines universalism and Blackness in France. In 2015, she co-directed Marianne Noire, Mosaic Afro-Payenne, a film which 7 Afro-French women unravel what it means to be Black in French, Black in France. Dr. Nyang is currently working on a manuscript tentatively titled Mosaica Negra, Blackness in 21st Century France. And Jessica Geneus, true national treasure, started her acting career at 17, playing in Barricade, a long feature by Richard Sénécal. She then collaborated with various local and international film directors like Raoul Peck in Moloch Tropical, Toussaint Louverture, directed by Philippe Niang and produced by France 2. In 2011, Jessica was granted a scholarship to study at Acting International School in Paris. Back in Haiti, she founded her own production company, Haitien Productions. In 2014, she directed Visage Nu, and later Devant Jour qu'à lever, The Sun Will Rise, her first documentary for French television. Freda, her first feature film, premiered at the Cannes Film Festival and the Un Certain Regard selection. The film came out in theaters in France and has been touring festivals around the world. Freda has won more than 20 awards since its release. So we are talking to people, powerhouses, who have already been reframing the narrative about Haiti in their own way. So I wanted to start because we are, the discussion is anchored in this series. I wanted to start by asking your reactions to the series. Anybody can start, feel free.
I'll jump in. I mean, I think my first reaction was, probably similar to many. We want as many people to know about this story as possible. So seeing it, I knew the story was in the works for a while and had conversed with the journalist. So I knew it was coming. I didn't know when, and I didn't fully realize the scope of it. So to see it on the front page for several days, over many days, and taking up that much journalistic real estate, I think is actually really, really important. Despite the fact that there were questions about, why hadn't the New York Times covered this story before? I tend to be a believer in better late than never. So I was, gratified to see it there and want and hope the conversation continues and deepens and becomes more extensive to the point of action. And so very happy to be a part of this series. And thank you to everyone involved in coordinating it.
Go. Following Marlena's step, I was really excited. Actually, I found myself in the odd position of having to defend a journal that I stopped reading a long time ago, because as you know, in France, the reaction varied a lot, from complete silence from French official. The piece actually came in the middle of a government shift, so they used it as an excuse. But we know that even without that, the government was not going to address the issue, as we know the country's long-time resistance and denial about the topic. And online and on social media, it was an explosion. Just thinking about the conversation that I had at home with people in my family, looking at what's happening online in France with just one recurring question: how was it possible? How was it possible to hide all of this? And when I talk about defending the New York Times, this is as part of a conversation that I had with the headmaster of my former primary school, who asked me if the information was real and if this was not, a case of just French bashing from an American media trying to settle scores with the United States, that as America was globally shamed after the George Floyd affair. So I had to tell people that this is real. Haiti was a French colony. And I think these are things that we'll also discuss toward the piece, but we as scholars working on this topic and working on this maybe longer than the New York Times had been trying to cover it, we had conversation about some of the tones of the series, like how new it was, and the sensationalist headlines, and the conversation about North American historians feeling excluded of a story about Haiti. And we might cover this, but anything that, at least in my side of the world in France, got people reading. I mean, we had a surge in articles, paid articles on Haiti from France. So anything that would get my people moved to want to learn, to actually pay, get books, academic books, go over paywall to read articles, I'll take it.
I have to, we're being told to remind the speakers to slow down for interpretation. So I'll keep that in mind too. And Jessica.
No, yes. First of all, it was really painful to read. And on every aspect, it was painful because, I don't know, we've been talking about that, on so many levels in Haiti. And at first, when we were talking about it, or when you would hear about it, especially around 2004, you would think more of it as a joke, as something that, yeah, they are probably laughing back, where they are seeing us asking for that money, but it wasn't funny when they took it. And the other thing that was painful also is I was more obsessed about the after. Like I was obsessed about, what is this gonna generate, Because if it's more talking, then I'm up for it. Yeah, we can talk. But I was really curious about how embarrassed can we make them? Like, how embarrassed can make them? And is there any room for them, to feel any type of, okay, let's at least do something, even, the little thing. And I can tell you that it's still early, of course, but I'm still in the pain of not seeing enough of this. And yeah, this is where I am with this article because it's yeah, I see how it's exploding, and I saw everything. And nowadays, unfortunately, so many things are exploding the internet. So you wanted to just pulverize it or just make it blow away, and so you can actually get what it's meant to, to do, obviously. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, for me, I remember, in 2004, there was like a big year for Thomas Jefferson, and I was asked to write something, and the thing I ended up writing was said, ignoring the revolution next door, about this debt. And people the response when the comments was like, you're always making excuses for Haiti. And so I think part of it was that, like, you had this link now that you can send to people who were saying that to you, who thought you kind of were over explaining. But I'm always thinking too about the next generation of people in our own families, to whom this is all as vague sometimes as the rest of the world, that to also have this sort of mainstream thing that you can share with them was also important in this way. And I was thinking of Michel Wolfe-Touyeau, and who warned us, that we can't underestimate the fact that history is produced in overlapping sites, right? And that people learn, average citizens sometimes access histories through celebrations, sites, visits, holidays, and now I get to the internet. But I think part of, even in what I think in this series and in daily life we wrestle with when something like that comes out, is why is it important? Why is all this stuff we've been telling each other and not enough? Like, why are these site-specific access type moments important? Or is it fair that they are so important?
No, absolutely. And it's about what you said also, because every time you would say those things, they will always come to you like, look at you like, do you think that you're so important, you know? Because those is, they managed so well to hide it. And even I remember when I went to Paris to study, the first shock that I had was when my fellow, you know, the student at the school where I was, they asked me where I was coming from, where do you come from? And I said, Haiti. And they're like, Tahiti? I said, no, Haiti. And I had to repeat it a couple of times. And I could not bear the fact that they didn't even know that the island exists, And I said, we've been going to, you know, studying in French, doing everything based on, you know, what your country has imposed in that island, yet you don't even know that it existed. So all those, of course, narratives is to make us exist. But I think at this point of the conversation, I don't even care that if they know that it exists. I want consequences of actions, you know, and the feeling. And when something so big happen, and you feel like the answer is not coming or will never come, I feel like it makes me feel more powerless than I was before. It's like I could hide in the fact before that they didn't know. Nobody knew, you know, it's not proven, blah, blah, blah. And now that it is proven and published in probably, you know, one of the biggest newspaper, like the credibility is, you know, it's very hard to doubt it. And to still feel like your scream is coming back in your throat. I honestly, I didn't manage to deal with that yet. And maybe I'm too emotional, of course, I'm too emotional, whatever, you know, I'm not pragmatic enough. But I hope in this conversation also to listen from you all. You know, how do you cope up with that? How do you stay grounded and continue, you know, and continue in the path, even though you feel like you're definitely not being heard the way you're supposed to, you know?
I mean, I'm going to jump on this conversation, of course, as an Afro-French woman and as a scholar working on Blackness, French colonialism, its history, contemporary products. And I think of 2 points, you know, from what you both just said. The sheer ignorance about Haiti and its relation to France. I mean, it's just astonishing in France. And the second point being the long-held belief in France that Haiti is silent, so mute, it's poor, it's failing, when we know, you know, from our research and work in life that Haiti is not mute, it's been silenced, it's not poor, it's been impoverished, it's not failing, it has been failed. And we're all accustomed, you know, to the chorus, the dance on French media or any, you know, Western media. You talked about it, Edwige, the public discourse after each natural or man-made disaster, like le pays le plus pauvre de l'hémisphère nord, l'île maudite, etc. And I hear what you say, Jessica, about you know, being able to give an excuse because ignorance is here. And now that the ignorance has been lifted, what I mean, what's next, right? This kind of effet soufflé, we talked about the information it's shared, and then I think that we have to, this is really what helped us going, you know, many of us to just keep to the thing. I was an English/history major graduating from a top program in France, and it is in the United States as an exchange student at the age of 26. I'm coming from a top history program that I learned that Haiti was a French colony, that I heard of Saint-Domingue for the first time. And this is still a sad reality for many, you know, French people. You know, we think of President Jacques Chirac a few years ago, who famously stated, this is the president of France, that Haiti was not a French colony per se, but a place with whom we shared a common language. And, you know, we wonder how that happened, and a failed country that France have long sworn to help and assist as part of its humanitarian mission. So the extent to which this history, the country has been wiped from French national memory is just absolutely, I mean, it's very hard to comprehend. And to analyze that, you mentioned Touillot, we have to go back to Touillot, this like notion of the unthinkable, and how in France this history was dropped as hot potato because one, it did not fit the victorious tale, you know, the myth that we created about the Republic, rights, equality, Frenchness, and two, philosophically, Haiti is very question the inconsistencies of our universalist narrative. And just to finish, I remember, Paulina, it was last year or 2 years ago when you wrote that beautiful piece when France extorted Haiti, right? And how the revolution was failed through lack of diplomatic recognition, heavy taxes, the intellectual isolation. And you spoke of the ransom. Do you remember that? It brought French people to the brink of madness. I mean, who is this woman? Why is she making up this story? We didn't do anything to Tahiti, right? Why is she accusing of all these things, like the greatest case in history, where all we've always done is to send medicine and drugs, and so it's really, and I absolutely hear, you know, the fact that you might feel despair, but when you understand the depth of ignorance and cultivated ignorance that we're coming from in this history, I take anything as a victory, because it's as if it's so hard to move the machine. The machine does not want to move, so anything that give us, you know, the feeling of the impression that it's waving a little bit is to be taken. And I believe, as someone who's been working on this for close to 20 years, that the article of the New York Times has moved things a little bit in France.
But is it ignorance or denial? Because denial is stronger than ignorance, and I'm more afraid of denial than ignorance.
You know, I work with Mill's type of ignorance, an ignorance that is cultivated, an ignorance that is not just of uneducated masses, but an ignorance that is coming from an elites. And, you know, so I'm talking about that type of ignorance that is passed on, that is cuddled, nurtured, fed, and we just don't want to listen and hear. So when things like the series appear, I mean, how do we deal with that? How do we deal with, and I think that this is stronger to me than denial. It's really, we don't want to know, it's another page of our history, but history is stubborn, right? And what is happening is that right now people are realizing that in these beautiful manicured pages of our national history, with all these great men, from Michelet to Roland to the Pierres and the Louis and the Françoise, we jump from page 3 to page 20, and there are, you know, 16 pages that were blue, and those pages are called Saint-Domingues and Haiti, and we're going to have to patiently undo them. It's the realization that we have now in France.
I would say also, you know, I taught in France, high school, and so had the exact Tahiti experience, but also with the a little bit of hula dance in there as well. And, you know, the sort of idea that, you know, also questioning, you know, how come the US had slavery, and saying to the students in seconde, France had slavery too, engaged in slavery as well, and the looks on their faces that it's just not a part of the curriculum. And so, you know, being told by French scholars, I would say, that, you know, none of these things really happened is like the pages of Trouillot coming to life, you know, walking around you and whispering in your ear all of his such resonant phrases, which made me think, you know, there's denial, there's silencing, there's lying though. And to me, that is all gaslighting. And the French people and the French state absolutely have to stop gaslighting the Haitian people and the Haitian state, from Jacques Chirac saying Haiti wasn't really a French colony, but the other French presidents as well, saying we owe a debt to Haiti, and then walking it back and say, no, I mean a moral debt. All of the things that the French people in their comments online, on social media, all of that anger and vitriol that they you know, spout at anybody who speaks of this history is a form of gaslighting designed, it has nothing to do with truth. It has nothing to do with politics. It has everything to do with simply denying something that is as plain as day. And the fact that what the New York Times did was lay it out before them in a manner that is undeniable, I think will have, I hope, lasting power, but needs to have not just narrative power. And I know our panel is a lot about narrative, but we do have to continue to put the pressure on the French government and the French people to force something to happen. Because Mom might remember this, when a prominent French scholar told me, the problem is that most French people don't know this history. If they knew this history, they would be outraged and they would want to do something about it. I said, well, let's test the theory. And that was several years ago before the Heist article came out, which was also in French. Other scholars, as we know, in Haiti, around the world have been working on this. Thomas Piketty has been working on this. The French people can know if they want to know. And the only people who can make France pay, I have said this for years, are the French people. They know how to force their government to do something. And it is their will and their striking and their desire that will force their government to take action. They are the only ones. And so for them to say, look at your country, which is what they always, look at Haiti, look at the United States. Well, I'm looking at you, France, because we need action and we need the denial to stop. That's only one step. We need the repayment, compensation, and reparation to begin as the next step.
Yeah, and I mean, I think sort of the part of the article that's discussed less often is the American part, right? Because they're gaslighting us too. They're still gaslighting us, like to this day. And the sort of the financial burden of that, I don't know if it's because it's more like the article was more towards a particular institution as opposed to sort of the greater American empire through this occupation that was 19 years and all that brought us. So I think there's the American part is there something to be also demanded of the United States, and which was sort of less covered by the article. I think also they got a little sort of cover from the extent of the French work.
But also it was what has been complicated for me, and maybe I'm completely wrong in what I'm saying, but I realized that to count on morality is not always, and that's why maybe I'm angry, because I know that the pressure has to be institutional and the pressure has to come from us, because they are talking about us. And again, they are talking about us, but we're expecting, a movement somewhere else. And I can't, it's hard for me to believe in that movement, because we know how it happened. It's whether it's a political context that makes something, sparkle and happen a certain way for the people, or specific, events or things like that. But to naturally have, a country to you realize something and naturally go and say that we're gonna do this. Okay, we are taking action to. I'm having a hard time to see, and that's what is hard for me, And I don't see how us on our side, and like Martin was saying, to put pressure, how do we apply pressure? What power do we have to apply pressure? Because people only listen to you when you have a certain type of power, whether it's political power, or financial power, or whatever it is, or interest. It has to be strong. And although we have it, we still haven't been able to use it in our favor, They still have always been able to come and take and do what they want to do. And this is what this article showed that almost drove me crazy, because it's the way that you see that they came, they literally, like it's their backyard. It's like, the United States have been calling us their backyard for, I mean, it literally happened like that. They came in, they did that, and it's hard for me to realize how, even though I understand what Mami, you were saying about the fact that it will change. Of course it will change, because they will have to talk about it in spaces that it was not talked about, They will have to start ignore it, but they have the power also to erase it again to a certain level, at least in their circle, at least in their. So that's where I'm. And also in this article, they keep saying the slaves. They said
enslaved.
We're not slaves. We were enslaved. It's completely different. It's different. And it's important for it to be said. Like, I know it sounds ridiculous. I remember, growing up when we were studying in Haitian history book, they would say, oh, Christopher Columbus came with his guy and they did that. And, the indigenous people that were there, they were too tired and too weak. So they died by, thousands and thousands. So they had to bring us from Africa because we were stronger. And the way they framed, the way they told the story made you be proud of being strong, and that they went to look for you in Africa to come replace people that were weak. So growing up, you're thinking about the thing, you're not thinking about the crime and everything that has been, done to you. You're thinking about, oh, I'm strong, I'm Black, I'm strong. They kept the strongest one because, they were really hard in how they select us and everything. So all those things I'm thinking now, they're not subtle and they're not to be ignored, with how we use the term, how we say we're not slaves, we were enslaved by criminals, and it's completely different. And to call me a slave, it literally tell me that that's who I've been my whole life. That I don't have a story before colonization, and I don't have a story before, whatever they decided that I am. So, yeah.
I hear you. I absolutely hear what you say, and actually this is what struck me when I read the title of our panel. We're not reframing their narrative, we're reframing our narrative. And when I look at this, I'm called to come from, the impetus is from here, right? How do I approach this as a Black woman, as a French woman of Black heritage, living in a country where I'm told that race doesn't exist, where, I'm a 7th generation French person, and everywhere I go, because my name sounds foreign, I'm asked where I'm from. So how am I in a country where citizenship doesn't matter, but there's something about me, something that doesn't have a word, because, we don't say Blackness in French, that always places me outside. So to bring us back to this idea of reclaiming our narrative. I really like how you talk of circles, Jessica. And for me, these circles are super important because we are faced with something so powerful, something that has the capacity to reinvent itself, something that literally ate, the entire world. Colonialism ate the world. How do I fight that without dying, within this small space that is my body, and within the small time that I have on this earth, right? And you compare that with the space that these monsters occupy physically and in time. And for me, one thing that has been very important is this idea of intimacy and working in small circle. We can't fight this, right? Or even think that the series will take care of this problem, because exactly of what you say, how do you fight something so immoral? Right. And to me, one thing that's very interesting is when we talk of the idea of reparation, I was very troubled. I mean, how do you repair, the anguish of a man who's seeing his enslaved woman rape in front of him? How do you repair all the impossible futures? How do we repair the generational trauma? How do you repair the fact that generational wealth was impeached? How do you repair all of that, right? You can't, but one thing that we can at least try is to have this start from us, repairing myself, repairing the way I see myself within this history, repairing the way I see these other lines. And one of the line, as a Black French person, the beginning line, the baseline for us is Haiti. I will explain this later. Talking about Blackness in France, the baseline is Haiti. So how do I repair myself through through intimate circle that start with me, and through a confidence of time that goes beyond the time that my physical body will be on earth. And this is what we do when, for example, in France, we push around the rhetoric of surprise. Even in this article around the current climate, right? Many people seem lost or struck by the novelty of the event, but we've lived with these silences, and through this companionship with time, this companionship with silence, we've acquired something, like a sense of a longer history of the present, and a different sense of temporality, ones that is not linear, life, you birth, life, death, but one that is, like spiralist, and in which the rotation of times inevitably unearths skeletons and hidden secrets. So these secrets are coming out one by one. think not everything will happen in my lifetime, but I'm okay with that, because for me, the first act of restoration is an act of restoration with myself. If the Palais de l'Élysée or the president doesn't want to see that, no, let's at least work, try to work that, acknowledge that something exists, something that needs repair. And this is where we are right now, at least on this side of the Atlantic, that something was broken, that it was stolen, mishandled, and acknowledge that a crime occurred here through slavery, colonization, the ransom, and the contemporary consequences of those crimes, how they are still plaguing Haiti. So the question in France, but also the US, I mean, at which you did a great thing talking about how the US was kind of, spread by the article. And the question that was reactualized by this series is, how do we reshape a narrative that never took shape, or one that was shaped in invisibility and the violence of silence? How do we, in our various positions, using our crafts, our languages, theory, art, cinema, painting, etc., how do we participate in the weaving of this collective tapestry while also taking care of our physical and mental health? And to me, it can only happen when we work in these small circles.
I would just say, I agree with you, Mom. But I think, I'm not sure that it starts with this, because in Haiti right now, the situation is so dire and extreme that to care for oneself is actually a tall order. This is the way I liken it. So Mitu Guladi, my colleague at the University of Virginia, and his students, their research paper was cited in the Ransom piece. They are actually preparing legal documents and legal briefs based on the principle of damages, because when people are harmed by other people, there is, of course, the actual material harm they suffer, which is the amount of the indemnity itself, but there is payment for pain and suffering. There is payment for lost opportunities. There is payment for consequences that are unforeseen in the future. And so to me, I want to not, sort of make myself crazy by, being on this quest. But I do think that what Jessica said before about embarrassing the French people and the French government, they do care. They call the New York Times sometimes. They get upset. They harass us, as you know, online, in our homes. It is having some effect. The question is, we don't want it to have a personal, individual effect. We want it to have an institutional, broader effect. And we want whatever happens to benefit the Haitian people of today, who are living in Haiti right now, suffering the consequences, I firmly believe, of this unjust debt and of all of the narratives that cropped up around to support it. Because the stereotyping of Haiti, it's not separate from the physical harm done to Haitians under slavery. What did we see? Tons and tons of narratives justifying Africans are barbaric. They're like this, they're like that. They can't be civilized, their language. It's all of a piece to deny people their humanity in order to take their resources, whether that's their labor and their body and their families under slavery, or their actual resources, their land during the US occupation and other occupations after that. And so for me, I want to see material consequences, and I want to, I hope the harm can be repaired, I would say. I hope it can be repaired. I don't think money is the only way, but I think it is a crucial piece, because if people cannot live, then they can't work on their hearts and their minds and their spirits. The body has to also be intact, I would say.
Absolutely. I was told again to remind our speakers to slow down for the interpretation. It's hard with all the passion, which is warranted and incredible. I want to talk about, and we're like in reframing our narrative, and this idea that you all sort of waded into a little bit of who is us, who is this us, and this narrative, are we reframing it by sort of broadening this coalition of who we are, of claiming people that were scattered from us in this experience of diaspora, or finding parallel struggles throughout the world, and also this idea of a series of wrongs leading to sort of where we are today. So how do we reframe the narrative? Is it by broadening it, by taking others in, by just not staying in the past, but also talking about the present, as you were, Marlena, and I, as I know, as Jessica is in Haiti and is sort of living the day to day. So how do we reframe that with the sort of broadest coalition possible on our road towards action?
I was thinking, I'm gonna answer what you said, Idrich, but I was thinking about what Ma'am said about, you know, to find a way to repair ourselves. I would go as far as saying repairing. And I've been thinking about that a lot, especially when I'm writing, especially when I'm thinking about, you know, telling a story through films, of course. And I've been thinking about how you rebuild yourself on the very land where the trauma happened. And it's like there's so much to be done in order for that, you know, in order for you to even begin to think that it's possible. And for example, in Freda was the obsession of this little family that is living in this house where a trauma happened. And you have to kind of transform yourself while looking at all the elements that, you know, that generated that trauma, and people that generated too. And sometimes those people are extremely close to your heart, you know, they are fathers, mothers, and you have to learn to look at them while seeing that spot, you know, that spot that keeps staying there, that says that this person contributed to something that was extremely harmful to you. And when I'm thinking about Haiti, that's also what I think, you know, as people, as a whole nation, this land, that the kind of fight that happened on this land was first a fight for survival. You know, it's not like, for example, when you think about the US, people were, you know, running away from something. They came together and fought for this land together for them to stay there. But we had this fight just to survive, you know, what was happening during colonization with us. And then we had the fight where to reclaim our freedom, and then, you know, to occupy the island as a nation. And when we did that, we were robbed, you know, from this article, you learn that we were robbed from the opportunity to build ourselves as a nation. So now you were treated as less than human, you managed to fight, and yet they find a way to crush you again and put you back. And since that point, you were not able to bring yourself up to a certain level where you can consider now, you know, that you're ready to collectively build this country. And this has been, you know, when I think about it as big as Haiti and everything, it drives me crazy. So I try to reduce it, you know, to the family level, to 4 or 5 people living together. And how? So when you're looking at them, you have to look at all the aspects of why it's so hard, you know, to rewrite their narrative so they can tell another story about themselves and see themselves differently, because everything around them remind them of who they said, you know, that they say that they are. And that's why it's hard. That's what makes us go crazy when we hear something from outside, because we can't stand the fact that it's that constantly every day. You know, you want to say something else about Haiti, but when you live there and constantly you're aggressed by everything that's happening outside, where do you find a voice to you know, to actually say, okay, today I'm not gonna talk about Haiti. I'm not gonna talk about, you know, that I couldn't go out in the street to simply go to the supermarket and buy stuff. I'm gonna talk about the beauty of our history, you know, and it's literally a work of meditation. It's literally work. Yeah. And some morning I manage for a few hours to do it. Yet I have the option of leaving. Yet I have the option of just leaving my house to go to somewhere more calm, or leaving my house to go to another country. So now think about the millions that doesn't have and will never have that option. So how do you create that space of escape? And that's the space, where you can say, oh, now I have a trauma and I need time to heal. And this is something that you've never been able to say really in a lot of families in Haiti, because this space doesn't exist. The space of healing doesn't exist, and it has never been, you've never had access to it, And so yes, I want to create it, but I know also that it's one of those things, that are easier said than done. And I don't know. And I'm really lost. Yeah, I'm just gonna let
you're not lost. You're taking us exactly in the right places, the right question. Where do you find time to localize everything that needs to be repaired? Who has the privilege of time? How do you address the earth, the hurting and everything that's been broken when the brokenness is constantly surrounding you? What do you do to resist, the alienation that comes with this constant question? And what do you do when survival is not just mental, but we're talking about literal survival? I mean, these are questions of life and death on a daily basis. This was not lost. You took us exactly to the right question, Jessica.
And I think also, I think part of being a child of Haiti, a creator of Haiti, someone who has loved ones in Haiti, you always, in terms of reframing the narrative, I think we're always guided towards this easier thing where people are like, write about the beach, write, tell good stories, tell happy stories while your relative is calling to collect some, so it's to collect like money for the ransom, another kind of ransom. But what is, I think it's the ability, and that's coming up in the chat, like how do we, reframing narratives, how do we think of ourselves without trauma, certainly, but also how do we carry all of that together? Like how do we, and Jessica, you do it in your art and you all do it in your scholarship, but I would love for us to explore a little bit, how do we tell multiple stories? How do we tell very complex, multiple stories at the same time about beauty, certainly, but also about pain that doesn't sort of add further to our stigmatization?
I think this is where, at least for me, the historical, focusing on the history of not just the Haitian Revolution, but 19th century Haiti, independent Haiti, and what the leaders and the people collectively went through together as they tried in their infancy as a nation state to heal from that first generational trauma, which was colonialism and slavery and forced removal of the population, the indigenous population as well. And that I can see that in the earliest years, people were not perfect. We can certainly talk about what happened under Dessalines and Christophe and Pétion and Boyer, but there was an effort to rebuild. There was an effort to restore joy, and there was an effort to make the country prosperous. And I think studying those narratives and bringing those, talking about those stories sort of lights different parts of my brain about how we can talk about the present day differently as well. Because of course, hardly anyone, I was gonna say no one is ever all good or all bad, but I don't know, the last few years in this country are teaching me that maybe that's not true. But I do think that the vision that the early, and you know, some of you may know I work on Henri Christophe, but the vision that people had, even in all of their imperfection, that there was actual beauty in that imperfection as well, and the culture and art that came out of the Christophian era, legacies that are with us today. And obviously we all know Haiti has an amazing art and musical and culinary culture. But as I said, I still don't know how to get out of the conundrum of doing all of that. And then on the other hand, having a family member who has to suddenly leave Haiti for a health crisis and has to get out because there's not healthcare that can help this person with this. I don't know how to hold all of that in my mind. And I wish I did, but I think it is one of our central dilemmas as Haitian Americans living in the diaspora as well.
There's also something that I'm trying to learn, which is to see beauty differently. You know, it's and to look for it where in what I'm exposed to. And I'm not talking about trash or whatever. Like I'm not talking about seeing. I'm talking about human, of course, and I'm talking about that situation between human and dive into a place of understanding instead of a place of judgment, and or to observe what's going on and you know, completely get rid of the desire to judge, because you it's an impulse that is constantly there, you know. And it's something that I'm trying to do first for my work, because I think it's very boring to create something where it's all about judging one side. And I don't know, from my point of view, I think it's, I don't see how it would be useful. So I'm always curious about the gray area. I'm always curious about, you know, people that you spontaneously would see as someone that needs to be, you know, categorized as whatever bad or whatever. What's going on? What brings us there? You know, what are the choices that we're making that is bringing, because I'm interested in the choices, because the choices are the key to understand what, you know, what's happening at each state of our journey as a nation. And there are choices that we've made, and it's hard to look at them because we are already in the painful state from something that is outside of our control, but we are suffering also because of things that are in our control. And thinking about narrative and thinking about the article, that's one thing. Also, when they're mentioning all the people that were collaborating and helping into, you know, making all this money disappear, all this not disappear because it went to someone's pocket. So obviously all this money that went somewhere. So to actually look at the part that we are playing in this destruction, whether it's on a political level or on a personal level, you know, and on choices that we are making. And those choices, I'm trying to learn not to see them as, oh, this person wants to destroy the country or this person wants to build the country. This is how this person is making those choices in survival thinking. And how do we minimize this survival influence, you know, the desire to constantly take decision in that survival bubble and think about something, you know, bigger. So how do we create the space for us to get out of that state of constant survival? Because I think it's very hard to progress in a state like that. Yet it has been our, you know, our state for a long time. And how do we get out of this? And I know of course it's an economical problem. Of course but yeah, then again, it's to think about it and see where we have leverage, because this is what I'm mostly interested in. Where's the little space that I have leverage to move, you know, to move things, and of course the stories that I'm gonna tell will be connected to that more, you know, even if it's a little space, you know, to do things differently, and that will make us behave differently to each other and within the country. I want to stay there, you know. And
why do you see that leverage right now, Jessica? Or do you even see it?
it's a 24 hours, you have to renew it every day. It doesn't last long. Some days you see it and then some days it disappears. And I've seen it when we were all together. When we are all together working, I see it. When you see Haitian, you remember. And this is something, and that's what keeps me in that country also. It's because I need to be reminded of that on a daily basis. Like I need to be reminded that we are is way more than a few words on the page of paper. And you're reminded of that when you go in the countryside, when you meet people and they open their house for you, give you food. And when you're about to pay them, they're like, what are you doing? Like, it's not about that. They even remind you that it's not about that, And so you're reminding of that when you're making a project and you don't have enough resources and people just gather in a country where people are making less than $1 a day. They gather to help you make it. So you need this reminder. And this is what keeps the flame of believing in the people, and believing that those 100 or 200 or 300 people that are controlling our narrative right now are not the 12 million or, so to detach and to constantly, and even from ourselves, from people outside of the situation that are, of course, way more scared because it looks even, harder and more difficult from outside. Their fear, sometimes, you're imprisoned by their fear. And you have to, so it's yeah, ma'am, it's an everyday struggle, but hey, it's like when you brush your teeth every morning. So this is something that you need to do every morning, a reminder of why and how, and
I want to leave time for plenty of questions, but I probably will want to go 2 more rounds with you all. And one of them is about what Joe Dreyfus calls a cage of words, and an essay that he wrote many years ago that was published in The Butterfly's Way, this anthology I'd edited. And he wrote, I call it the phrase, and it comes up almost every time Haiti's mentioned in the news, the poorest nation in the Western Hemisphere. These 7 words represent a classic example of something absolutely true and absolutely meaningless at the same time. The phrase is a box, a metaphorical prison. How do we get out of that metaphorical prisons, but all the others as well? Do you all have any suggestions? We could start, Marlena, if you could start.
I mean, I would love to know specifically. I think I have more suggestions about some of the other metaphorical prisons, but the phrase, I'm baffled when I see it. I continue to see it in the New York Times. To this day, I continue to see it in the Washington Post. I don't know how many times we have to say it's dehumanizing, because you could say the United States, the most violent country of the 21st century. I'm just saying, you could say anything about a country and repeat it over and over again. That would be true, but also meaningless, as Joël said. So I don't know where the disconnect is, if it's just what people are, they actually don't know that that's offensive. They've somehow missed that. We have to keep repeating it every few years, but as I've seen a resurgence of it. I saw it in articles published after the Ransom piece. So I don't know how to get, how do we get out of that prison, when I have seen people defend that phrasing, saying, again, because it is true, as if everything that might be, which it's only true depending on how you look at it, which is where the reframing comes in, because there's very, very rich people in Haiti, very, very rich people in Haiti, as Gina Louise is always pointing out about all the millionaires in Haiti. So only some people in Haiti are experiencing the quote unquote poorest country. The other metaphorical prisons, I think there was a piece in The Atlantic about Vodou, recently, Nadège Green, I think it was, who wrote the piece, talking, I think I think pieces like that are helpful. I think, but I don't know of the material effect. So I would leave it to others to say, but I do think that we have narrative power in our voices, in the art, in what we create. And I do see that that the needle is moving. I would like it to move faster, but I'll try to be more patient. But I'm interested in what others have to say about sort of getting out of the linguistic and metaphorical prisons that Haiti continuously finds itself in since the 18th, since narratives of the country started to emerge, really.
I think there are some people in the group of people that are organizing this conversation, actually, that are working on things like that. And I think one of the most powerful things is really to just write and push things out. And this is one of the aspects that I think the diaspora can actually really take over, and not even helping, but really take, a huge, like, create this space of making stories, everything, whether it's an article, books, whether to come from Haiti and to take place, and even if there is a huge production of literature, for example, from Haiti, but it tends to go more to friends. It tends to go more, more to friends from my point of view. And I'm sure Edwidge can give more information about that. And I think it's about making it, and those that actually traveled are not all of it, it's just part of it. And I remember I was somewhere and someone was saying, how can we help? How can we help? I said, just create space for the voices to exist.
And listen.
And yes, because it's true that we don't have political leverage to go to the New York Times and say, blah, 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 and you take that down, whatever. I don't know. I don't even know if we had money, if we would have been able to do it, But I think it's really to create that space for us and for the outside. And because once we start talking and saying things differently, it will have this effect within our community. And all the production also that will come out will have this flavor, will have the flavor of, and I wish not to be, whether in the side of justifying something, or I'm just trying to, exist, just exist. Not the best, not the worst, it's about we're there, and and this is one aspect of what is happening there. And to make that exist, I think this is extremely important. And some people are doing it. It's something that really needs to grow bigger and bigger. And of course it's delicate because there's point of view, because objectivity is complicated when you're a huge group of people, because how do we decide, censorship or whatever that can happen in this. But whatever it is, we need to try it. We need to try it fully, not just with, create small groups, but really that's one of the things, I think. Of course, it's not all, but I think that's one of the things.
So on the cage of word, I'll try to go really fast. In France, we hear it, le pays le plus pauvre de l'hémisphère nord, but we have also, these words, and I will put in it république, universalisme, liberté, égalité, fraternité. So this way of arranging the world to fit a certain vision of self and of one's place in the world, of, one country as roles as bearer of the Enlightenment, and another country as, a country that has plunged, that has always been in darkness, and that is in need of help. And as in any classical tragedy, you have very defined acts and roles. You have the heroes, the leading man, the traitors, the great battles, the sacrifices, the gift, and you have these words that help you define and kind of crystallize this for history and for a longer time, what everyone's role is. In France, we don't learn about the first, just to give you an example, we don't learn about the abolition of 1794. It was in the US that I learned of 1794. We celebrate 1848 because to teach us about 1794 is to have to explain to us that as a country of the Enlightenment, we reinstated slavery. And to me, this cage of words, something like, hey, this insistence, almost insane insistence of not calling Haiti Haiti, but the poorest country in the hemisphere, in the northern hemisphere, participate in this in French, we call it la blanchisserie républicaine, this whitening of history and this removal of any point of history that shall remain unknown, and who's, kind of coming out of the darkness and the silence that it's been kept for centuries, will question all the thought, all this history and pride that we had in our history. So Haiti has to be kept in darkness and just put in silence, and just described in those 7 words that are a door that should be closed and prevents any curiosity. But what I'm seeing right now is a generational shift, a true generational shift. When I visit journalism school from Northern France to Brown in the US to Portugal, there is a new generation that is starting to be aware of the weight of these words. We're not just talking about 7 words, we're talking about a cloud that replicates some of the historical traumas. So that's here, and also seeing what's happening, activism, the works of the diaspora on social media. I have hope. And again, we hope that this might happen before our physical body leaves this earth. But we are now asking this question, and to me, it means that, again, I'm taking little baby steps, that something is moving, not fast enough, but something is moving.
So I want to, before we go into the audience for questions, talk about some solutions, what each of us can do in terms of reframing our own narratives as Haitians, even in our own personal spaces, with the Yafini narrative, with the Numodi narrative. We do it too. So what are the ways that we can reframe the narrative? And I mean, I think one of the ways, and it was mentioned already, is by Jessica, is by supporting our storytellers, by encouraging the next generation, our young people, to not be, Haiti seems amorphous to them too. They're like, it's like, can I step in there? To kind of encourage them with these, by keeping our stories alive in many different ways. So what can we do? And there's a lot in the chat too about healing, about ways of healing all this generational trauma, and with I think Professor Degraff mentioned the laku and all these things that have gotten us to survive and throughout the ages, but also in diaspora. So how do we change the narrative, starting with us as well, and then going outward? Like, what are some things, like some concrete things we can take away with in terms of reframing narratives?
So I can start. As a Black French person who discovered that one could be Black and French at 26, as someone who heard for the first time the name Fanon in an American institution, someone who heard for the first time the name Marie Scondé, someone who heard for the first time the name Aimé Césaire, someone who heard for the first time that Haiti was Saint-Domingue, and it was the richest colony in the universe. For France, discovering all of this, hearing about Haiti, learning about Haiti, its history, its complicated history, its complexity, and its present is essential to understand what it is to be Black in France. It's absolutely essential. And today there's a generation of scholars, of artists, of writers in France who are diving into that, trying to understand that to be Black within this project, within the European Modernist project, is to live on the fringe of official narratives. It has been for us to exist in the dead angles and silence, but it also meant that we're not alone. And to make this, and it goes to what Marlene said, right? For her diving into this history in the 19th century and realized that even there, people were not silent, right? They found ways to bring this history or bits of this history, of these stories to us. And there's also a lot of despair. It's a different kind of despair. You know, when I talk to cousins and aunts and people in the banlieues, in these ghettos in France about the situation here, in at least in France. But when we realize that sometimes you're it's almost as if you're drowning and a cord has been sent to you. And this is an example that I use because it's personal, it's mine, but more and more I'm seeing it around me, that for us, Black people in France, that cord, that thing that is preventing us from drowning into this racist, dehumanizing system that in France, that cord is Haiti, that rope is Haiti, trying to understand what Haiti meant for the history of Black people in the world. And the ways that we find, you know, from our little scale, personal scale, is to developing, you know, networks, connections with artists, with writers, at very, you know, these are very small levels. But from what I'm seeing, and this is what the topic of the book that I'm working on right now, with the introduction chapter on this, on the relationship between us and Haiti from the past to present. It's how it's enlightening us, how it's helping us literally survive a system that is smothering us, and yes, smothering dreams, smothering aspirations, and making us, you know, trying to disappear. So, and this is really at a, like you said, Jessica, it's every day. It's a 24 hours type of work, questions that you are, you know, that we keep asking to each other. But yeah, for the past 5 years, this road for me has been absolutely Haiti and just, you know.
I would say, I think supporting Haitian-led organizations in Haiti, the United States, in finding the people who are working in local communities. And I think for me, in the scholarly world, the Haitian Studies Association, I think is doing such vital work in terms of, there's the training that happens at your institution with your advisors, but there's a less visible training that happens outside of that realm at conferences and in mentoring with people outside of your university. And the Haitian Studies Association, for me and for so many of the scholars of my generation who all first met each other there, found our support networks there when people were telling us that what we're writing wasn't important, it didn't matter, we were never going to get a job. That's what many of us were told over and over again. And I just think about how many dissertations and books and articles that have advanced the narrative forward, including on the indemnity, but also on the Duvalier era, on social institutions in Haiti today, that wouldn't have been written if people listened to their advisors and not to the mentors they found in places like the Haitian Studies Association, and to support scholars in Haiti, which HSA has been doing, and holding the conference in Haiti when possible, and making sure that as we are reframing the narrative, it is really a we, all of us together, and not, I take Jean Casimir and other scholars, their points very seriously. It can't become a replica of the imperialism where it's just about kind of extracting the narratives out. It actually has to be for collective storytelling and for the collective good. And so I would say also supporting Haitian journalists, share their articles, share Aibo Post articles, share, Haitian Times articles, share the works of the scholars who, like Étienne Dupin, who get their pieces into CNN, and make sure that people hear their voices, because they are also on the ground doing reporting that is not just, from afar, and telling us what is happening today, those of us who are far away. So that's what I would say.
We have also Jessica, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I'm No, what I quickly wanted to say is something that I've been trying to do, because it's so terribly hard, is to look at myself, my surrounding, my community, my people, and not through what they think of us. And that's a huge prison that, I've been in. I'm trying to talk for myself, not to generalize. So I've been in, where you're obsessed about, oh, if this, if this goes out like that, what are they gonna take of us, and the shame, and to continue the culture of, being ashamed of who you are, and constantly balancing that shame through what they think or whatever. And so trying now to look at myself, to look at what I am really, and to accept it, not necessarily to, I don't know, to make it part of my life or whatever, but to understand and accept that this is what it is right now. It's like making an assessment of who we are as a nation and as right now, as a community right now, and make peace with that, and work within our community, and not constantly thinking about, what does this white people said about us, or what. It's like a trap. It's like almost like, I feel those 7 words that you talk about, I feel like they do it to distract us from being where we are supposed to be, which is with our community, and focusing on the growth, the little growth that we are trying to gain day after day, so we can elevate ourselves from what's going on. And I feel like we are constantly being distracted. It's the way I see that, c'est quand un mauvais esprit a voyé there au pouvoir, to make you step. And I don't want them to trap me like that. Even in my films, not because I have a problem with white people, whatever, but I try not to put them, if I have a character of someone that is not, living in Haiti, I will make it like a shadow, because I'm like, you're a shadow that is constantly trying to push me to a place that I don't want to be, because we want to be in the process of healing. And now, how do you heal when someone is constantly harassing you, bullying you, and you're letting that have access to you? And I don't want them to have that access. I remember when I made Duvanjou with my mentor, I told him, there's no white people in this. I know we're talking about colonialism and what, but it's about us, what it's doing to us right now. It's no more. They've made countless, there are books, there, everything that is being made about, what happened before. They need to be people making what is that doing to us right now in our daily basis. And even at the end of the film, because we film a little bit in Florida, and we saw a little white man walking, and he was like, do you want me to go? And I said, no, not to that extreme, but you get the point. And so I tried to do it. I tried to do it in everything. And again, it's not from a place of hating or whatever. It's a place of, let's look at ourselves and ourselves only, and what we're going through right now, and push them away. As they pushed us away, they made us disappear, and it worked, because for more than 100 years, nobody even know, we were not even in the French dictionary, like what's Haiti, So I want us to make them disappear like that in our narrative, at least, because that's where we have power. And that's what I'm trying to do, to think about it, even in my conversation, workshop, whatever I'm doing. I try not to mention it, even if it's hard, because the neocolonialism is still there, and you're like, but you're like, for us that has the space, the mental space to do it, it's almost a duty. It's almost a duty, because some of us, doesn't have that privilege. So I'm trying to consider the fact that I have the privilege to create a space of, make that disappear. And I'm trying to use it for myself and my work.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, it's what you're saying is, so reminds me a lot of what, Toni Morrison's vision of the white gaze, and how she talks about racism being so distracting, because you're spending so much time like trying to prove your humanity, that you're not not leaving that time is being taken away from the work you need to be doing. And I think that often happens to us in our sort of like in our responsive stance, when we're like responding, like sort of even like reframing the narrative by trying to go counter to the narrative, is by suddenly responding. But there are some really great suggestions in the chat from Professor de Graaf about one way that we reframe the narrative is by rewriting our history books, I assume from our own perspective, and Creole, langue racine, and someone said to start spelling Haiti, the indigenous way, and tell about the Haiti you know. It's singular, it's yours, but to tell and also teach our children about the culture. So I want to ask some of the questions that are starting to show. And one of them is, I guess, sort of goes back to the center of this conversation. We grazed that a little bit earlier. What is the narrative of Haiti from the Haitian perspective? Like, what would that be? Someone, I can't tell the person because it was going fast, but I noted it.
Well, there isn't one, there are many. And I think that sort of underscoring that is a way to, it basically, by underscoring the fact that the narratives from Haiti, coming from within Haiti and from Haitians, are multiple, underscores how singular the dominant narrative wants to be, but actually never has been, because Haitians have been writing their own history actually since before Haiti existed as a recognized nation state. The people who are now and are the descendants of Haitians are the earliest Haitians have been writing these stories, and they were read. Toussaint Louverture's memoirs were, of course, brought to the 19th century by Joseph Saint-Remy in highly edited form, and then translated into English and circulated around. And I think it's really important because it speaks to the fact that if you want to know the story, you could always have known this. You must deliberately try not to know the story of Toussaint Louverture in the 19th century, because everyone was talking about it. England was talking about it. And so I would say that bringing more of those stories to light, the stories from the past, and not replicating what dominant people who expound dominant theories do, which is to try to create a singular narrative, the founding fathers. Well, in Haiti, there are people who we resist in some way saying the founders, because of exactly, it doesn't expose the participation of the people who are always the ones who built the state. And even CLR James, in his later prefaces to the Black Jacobins and in speeches he gave in the 60s and 70s, talked about how he regretted focusing so much on one singular individual, Toussaint Louverture, in the Black Jacobins, because at the expense of the 10,000 Louvertures who General Leclerc was so afraid of, because after the arrest, that was the phrase. We got rid of Louverture, but there are 10,000 Louvertures. And so remembering that each of those people, which were many more than 10,000, had a story to tell, and still have a story to tell. And they're important stories. And so I would say there's not one narrative. There's so many that we could possibly never capture them all.
And Marlene, you were talking specifically about narratives coming from Haiti, but I am thinking about how narratives also from the diaspora on how Haiti, right, from the history to the present, inspired. It's also very interesting in how those two productions can help catch in a vice the dominant Western narrative of, destruction, malediction, poorest country. So it's also very interesting, and this is what I'm seeing more and more in conferences that I've been attending in the past years around Pan-Africanist productions, and more and more seeing a displacement from a very US-centric construction of Blackness, right? Construction of Blackness that is coming from words, concept, theories from African American, and a displacement. It started kind of slowly, but I'm seeing it more and more, an opening, going toward Haiti. So with the hope that, as you say, these two productions coming together, both the narrative coming from the narratives, this is also very important to put this in plural, coming from inside Haiti, and the narratives about the important centrality of Haiti from the Afro, the African diaspora could help minimize, or at least show that there's some other stories are here and they need to be told too.
And also there's something that I always think about. It might feel really light, or not, because when you think about, for
I like
example,
when how you say, oh, this is something going to be very light, and you drop a bomb.
yes, it's really
No, I
light.
say, okay, this might sound, and it's like bomb.
It's really light, because when you think about, listen, when you think about the American dream, it's something that we've all come to believe in, and people go there because they truly believed in that, and they're ready to lose their life. It's like a common belief, that was collectively, people agreed within the country and outside of it, and it was so powerful. And I always think about, of course, we have the first, being the first Black Republican. That's a common belief that we have, and that we go to, and that we hold on to. And I said, maybe also it's time to create one for now, something now that even that we are building toward, even if it's not a reality, because we all know that the American dream is not true for everyone, and that the American sea, has many people that didn't get to, achieve that dream, but still it stayed there because it's a possibility, and it's something that maybe they're working toward or whatever. But I said, what can we create for ourselves? What belief that can we create that we can work toward to, and that we collectively say, and that we collectively work together to make happen. And this is something that I think about also, because they dare to do it, even though they know it's not true, even though they know it has a lot of flaws. They dare to think it, and people follow along in that, complete idea.
What you say is not light. It's very important. I'm thinking about, one of the last time I heard Jean d'Amérique talk here, little French kids, mostly Black and Arab, were looking at him like, I mean, this looks like a Hollywood movie. And when he was talking about the Haitian Revolution, and in their minds, as 14 years old, this has all the hallmarks of a great action movie, of a Hollywood movie. But how come we never heard about that? I mean, this is how myths are constructed. You were talking about voodoo, Marlon, how even if these things are what they are, myth, right? They never really happened, but how true cinematic machine like Hollywood or Les Studios Pathé in France, we are creating these myths and have people believe in it. And in our case, we don't even have to create them. The stories are already here. And I talk about it when I see this 14-year-old say, oh my God, how come I never heard? These are badass, they did that, right? So it has all the hallmarks of a Hollywood movies, and we need to continue making it happen through these little, it was a very small circle with 15 kids, but I'm sure that on that day, Jean d'Amérique made something, a seed was planted in these little kids' brains, so yeah, these little kids' heads.
We have to dare telling what we want to, and not letting them make us feel ashamed of things, because the shame has worked a lot also in, in making us hiding, not knowing what to express, and how to define ourselves, because we are never sure if which one we know is the shame, and to own it. It's power. And of course, it's cliche to say that, but it is power to own it, whatever flaw, that it might have, and however not so beautiful or so bright that it might be, to own it, like not to allow them to make us feel ashamed of it. And
or even go back to something that you said at the beginning of this talk, displace the embarrassment. The embarrassment is not mine to have now. It's going to either be shared or it will be all yours to take. And yes, we have to think of how to make that happen.
Another question is about vision, an ideal. I think it's from Marie-Françoise. What is the vision? What's an ideal to aspire to, or some ideals to aspire to, especially given what is happening in the country right now, which is always, even if we're not directly discussing it, in the forefront of our minds. What is the vision looking back and forward at the same time?
I think this is where, back to Mom's kind of healing, because, well, the practices, but also to the larger concept of hope, because even though I sometimes want to rail against hope myself and, what is it, we can't just hope alone. At the same time, I think, what if the people, in Saint-Domingue had ever given up hope? When I read that Les Affiches Américaines and all the marrons, as they called them, who are leaving all the time in the hopes of having freedom, I think that has to be a part of the vision, if not the central piece of it. And that's what I think in these years to come, whether in Haiti or in the United States or in France, where with the growing right-wing sentiment, gun violence all the time here as well. We talk about violence in Haiti, but we have extreme violence, as we all know, in the United States at this moment, every single day. And because the opposite of hope is what? Despair. And that to me leads to inaction. And so, so I would say that would be my vision right now, what we need to keep in mind.
Another question is, how can we use Black Lives Matter to our advantage? What would that look like? I know you've written about that, Marlena, in terms of Haiti, your framing, which is also reframing the narrative, as Haiti is sort of the home, the motherland of Black Lives Matter in a certain way. So maybe you can all definitely, ma'am, to address that.
Claudine Michel, I think, was the one who first said that. I just want to give credit where credit. I remember she said Haiti is the birth of Black Lives Matter. Mm-hmm. But I think it's true, but I think it's incredibly difficult to watch what is happening with Black Lives Matter in the US right now, we saw the resurgence after the killing of George Floyd, and then to see that there's actually a backlash against Black Lives Matter at this moment is disheartening, and reminds me of the kind of salutary support for the Haitian Revolution, but then actually undermining of the Haitian state consistently. And so I'll leave it to others to say what direction they think is going in at present.
Mm-hmm. Ma'am, Jessica.
Yeah, I'm thinking because, ma'am, you want to say something? Are you gonna say something? I'm gonna ramble. I think I'm thinking about. First of all, it's very complex, of course, because all the expression of Blackness, can I say that? Blackness is different from one country to the other, one situation, but if you're thinking about it on a human level, not in keeping it, in the society level and how the dynamic makes it, exist in each society. If you're thinking about it on the human level, of course, the way we position ourselves. But the thing is that freedom is hard. And I think this is another thing that, I grew up listening to that freedom. When you think about freedom, you think about yourself running in some field, having your arms like completely in the wind and being free. It feels like something very, light and beautiful that you just want to walk toward to. And I feel like, I don't know if I'm constructing something in my head to justify things, but in Haiti, I feel like this is the place where I understand what freedom is, because this is the exact thing that a system doesn't want you to have, the freedom to whatever it is, to exist the way you think, to have perception on yourself. Whatever doesn't work toward one global, movement is not welcomed. So when you're there to exist, it's hard to be aware, but it needs to be aware of the consequences, if I can call it consequences, because it will have. And in the article, again, it shows you how we had to fight to keep that freedom, how they kept coming, and staying around and say, if you don't, I'm gonna take it away from you. And it's something that we constantly trying to do. How do we keep that freedom? There's winning it, and of course there's keeping it, and of course there's
how do you continue, to make it grow and make it looks like something that people can aspire to, instead of something that people say, you know what, I might as well stay where I am, with my problems. I don't want that type of. And they turned us into that in the Caribbean. I mean, we all know that they used us as, for a long time as the example of what freedom can turn a whole nation into. And also, this is something that we have to claim, to understand that the choice of being free as a nation has this consequence, but you will never hear Haitians say, oh, we should have never fight then. Mm-hmm. Because this has to stay the way it is. The fight to be human has to stay the way it is. And this is the hard part. And to accept the hard that is coming. I'm not saying that it has to be that dramatic, because we don't need all this drama right now that we're going through. But there will be resistance and huge resistance, for this to exist and to be a fully an example of what freedom can really be, when people fight for it and really take it, and not waiting for someone to give it to them, because it's never given anyway. So, yeah.
Yeah, so I think that this question highlights the and when I read it, with your take on the link with understanding what freedom is, the cost of seeking freedom and the cost of trying to maintain freedom. I think it highlights the importance of building global networks and transnational, those transnational bridges. And this is something, that I do a lot when I tell my students to, if they can't physically travel, to look at, to observe how anti-Blackness work outside of the boundaries of their own country or of the place where we are. What are the mechanisms of anti-Blackness in the localities where you are, or the localities that you're studying? What is the quality of silence, right, of invisibility around Blackness in the places where we are? And this is something that I say a lot, and I cannot stress how pivotal my being in the US has been for my understanding of negrophobia in France, and how my understanding of Blackness and freedom and the tie between color and freedom in Haiti had been for understanding my position as a Black person in France. And, I think it was Anne-Joseph Gabriel who said that anti-Blackness is a global disease that cannot go away with a local remedy. But one thing that we can do with the local remedy is to see how, when I talk of the quality of Blackness, I think it rings with Annette just said, the tie with freedom, what it means for me to evolve as a Black person, a Black woman in Paris, in Port-au-Prince, in Dakar, in Puerto Rico, and what are the connections that we can. So for me as a person growing up in France, I see the connections and what I can get from Haiti. And now what we are doing in our work is to make this, a two-way street, right? What are, when you look at a movement like La Vérité pour Adama, or the dozens police violence, working to restore justice, get justice for Black people getting murdered in France. What can people in Haiti, right, learn or get from these movements? Because so far it has been heavily a one-way street, right? So yeah, this is the vision, really strengthening these transnational routes at the very intimate, small circle level, that I think are the most effective.
Yes. We're going to probably have to, this could go on forever, but we're going to have to stop soon. Can you each give us some final words before we turn back to our gracious hosts who have made this conversation possible? Some final words, like sending us out with some great motivation to go out and reframe the narrative, our narrative.
I'm grateful, Edwidge. I'm grateful. I'm grateful for you all. And I think maybe you don't realize how just to see someone holding in their area gives you strength to hold where you are also, because you understand the struggle and it's different. And I'm grateful to have access to this conversation
because all those women that are on this panel and all of them that have organized this are people that I highly admire. And every time that I see them, that they are holding, that they are not letting go, this is my strength. This is my strength. And I've been blessed during the whole year of traveling with this film to meet women, so many of them. I don't know what energy is going on, but they've been coming in. And it's a reminder of the beauty, you know? It's a reminder of the beauty, because you need to be reminded of the beauty, otherwise you go crazy and you're trapped in the pain. And I'm extremely, extremely, extremely grateful for that. Extremely grateful for people that still want to listen and talk about it, and that still find the drive to, to not letting go and commenting. And so I hope all of you continue to produce and continue to do everything that you're doing in whatever field that you are, because it nourishes someone somewhere all the time, all the time, all the time. This is something that we should never forget. And it nourishes me. And thank you for that. And thank you for this great conversation. I was not in that state before I started. I was really, things were locked, and now I feel some opening. I'm gonna try to keep it for more than 24 hours, because it has been hard to keep it for longer than that. But I have hope. I can come back to it in my mind, and I'm grateful for that.
I mean, I think someone wrote that the space feels sacred. I mean, I think these conversations can be healing for us to gather, and you feel like we're not alone. That's also a space of gratitude.
Yeah, it's true.
Thank you all. I just want to thank you. I'm honored to be here to share this space with you, to share this space with the audience. I wish I could read all of your chats that I've seen have been very robust. We say "Main pile chai palou." I believe that's true, and I hope I want to collaborate with all of you and move the conversation and the action forward.
Well, la même chose ici, the same, really happy to be here. Lots of gratitude, and we eat and drink with. This is how we get. I mean, it's the fuel, right, to keep on going when everything around you says no, wrong direction, don't do this. And we need this circle, because listening to people who have this knowledge, people who know or who've been studying different ways of crossing the world, and ways that had been long considered to be vectors of contamination, vectors of replacement, vectors of danger, and say that there's something to be learned, right, from people who've long engaged into these practices. And for us, members of the diaspora, looking at this history as something, this story as something that gives us wings, something that gives us pride in being Black, in being, right? And also listen what it means to be also able to learn from this history without doing it and doing it in a manner that unsettles accepted genealogies of thought, and also without recreating the extractivist relations of domination or erasures of activists, indigenous or non-white scholars. So it's I'm very, very happy and grateful to be here with you, and merci beaucoup.
Yeah. Merci Marlena, merci Mom, merci Jessica. And thank you to all of you for joining. I will now bring Leonie back to the virtual stage, as they say.
Thank you everyone for joining us for part 2 of the Ransom Haiti Stolen Wealth series, Reframing Our Narrative. We'd like to give a special thank you to the interpreting team who did the Creole interpretation. It's Marb, based out of Miami, and we want to give a shout out to Debbie, Lourdes, and Martine, who did an excellent job in interpretation, in translation. A special, special, special thank you to you, our national treasurer, Edwidge Dantika, and Miami resident. We have her now. Thank you for moderating this incredible conversation. And, you know, to our speakers, Jessica Geneus, Dr. Marlena Dout, and Dr. Mam Fatou Niang, you know, gratitude most profound for this, you know, just incredible, incredible conversation. You know, when the newspaper series came out, we sort of said, we got to do something. We have to have that conversation. We have to talk to one another, whether it's a, you know, book club format, but, you know, we came together, these, you know, multiple organizations, and we decided to, you know, plan and execute this series, which of course, I think I could speak for all of you, you know, Haitian Ladies Network and all the partners, that this series truly exceeded our expectations. And bringing, you know, people will say, well, why these women? We did not set out to create a group of female panelists, but it's just that each and every one of us wanted to hear from you. And so, you know, for all the men out there, it's not that we said, well, you know, we got to have women only. No, it was just that these women have been such powerful speakers. They have, you know, they have thought about it, analyzed, written books about it, that we thought it was really an ideal group to sort of listen. And boy, did we you know, when we were truly impressed by the caliber of the conversation, the depth of the conversation, how we're moved to action, moved to really understanding this whole idea of redefining, reframing, and recreating the narrative. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Once again, I just want to name again who we are. We are a collective of Haitian and Black-led organizations. We are Haitian Ladies Network, the Black Collective, the Haitian American Foundation for Democracy, Saint-La Haitian Neighborhood Center, Island TV, Aibo Post, Haitian American Professional Coalition, HAPSI, and Avancer Ensemble. This is not over. The conversation continues. Join us next week for part 3. What's next? Repairing Haiti and Global Movement for Reparation. It's going to happen next Tuesday. And you started the conversation already. Next Tuesday, July 19th at 7 p.m. We will explore the continued impact of the double debt and U.S. occupation of Haiti on Haiti today, and connect to the global movement for reparation. And so we would also encourage you, if you haven't registered, please do so. And we would also want to ask you, we want to hear from you. So we want to ask you to take just a couple of minutes to complete a brief survey that has been dropped in the chat. Please complete it. It's very important to us. It helps us understand, you know, this is new to us. So what can we do? What else can we do? And so we really encourage you to come to fill it out. So that's it. Again, on behalf of this collective of organizations, you know, again, the narrative is we don't work together. Women can't work together. We can't do this together. And this is an absolute proof that we do work together. We can work together, whether we're here in Haiti or wherever in the diaspora, we do work together. So again, thank you to the panelists. Thank you to the moderator. Truly an honor.